Okay, Chris, and the floor is yours whenever you wish to start.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to talk about understanding and preventing floor covering failures. In about 30 minutes, we're going to solve the world of flooring problems. So buckle up. And thanks for having me here to talk today. Okay. First slide, is it going to allow me to do this? There we go. In this session, we will review, we'll look at the floor covering reference manual of Canada. We'll brush over the huge issue of moisture testing and other problems caused by moisture, the biggest reason flooring has issues out there. Indoor environmental conditions we'll talk about, substrate flatness, and then we'll finish off with a few resources at the end. Understanding and preventing issues starts with getting connected. That's why we belong to good associations where memberships are engaged and active. From or through those associations, we get access to education, like events like this. In order to prevent problems, purchase good products, not just the latest container that's arrived on the beach with the promise of huge margins and no problems. Make sure those products that you are purchasing come with good installation guidelines and warranty instructions. If they don't come with that literature, don't buy the product. It should be clear about how you should be installing the product so that your warranty is left in place. And sell the facts. Setting expectations is difficult. As a sales rep, when you're trying to, make a commission and get everything done on time for the homeowner, and the homeowner is pushing you to get the job installed super quick so they can get back on with their lives, it's not easy to say no. So you've got to learn through the education and training about what you need to do to get the job done right, so that when you do push back against maybe a general contractor who's pushing for completion, and those guys and girls know how to get action. So you've really got to know what you're doing and be confident when you say, nope, we're not installing this week, we're installing next week because your substrate is not dry. Whatever it is. And achieving acceptable conditions is a big, big deal. Every day we're challenged as floor coverers to get proper site conditions. Like this, not. Too often we get pushed to install when the windows aren't in. Vancouver's awesome rain is coming through the windows at 45 degrees right onto the surface that we're expected to start installing on Monday morning. You would be surprised at some of the ridiculous scenarios that we hear unfold. Why a builder would ask you to install early? Probably because they're looking to get a draw from the owner who's building the house so that they can keep paying their trades and move forward. Makes it look like they're getting progress when the floor's down, even though the floor, is not supposed to be down early on. Timing is everything in love, war, and floor coverings, folks. So here is the guiding light to help with that process, to help you push back. It's a safe place for all construction parties to go and get on the same page. When I say construction parties, I mean architects, building owners, flooring contractors, general contractors, manufacturers, all can trust the information they find in a document like this, which is just representing minimum standards. This document targets the Canadian floor covering industry, although in the world of flooring, the rules and regulations pretty much cross borders, pretty much cross international borders. It's a round the globe language flooring. It's done the same in Australia as it's done here, et cetera, et cetera. So the document is written in something we call master format. That is the architectural speak, if you will, so that architects can open this book, copy the text included very easily into their documents, their specifications, to get minimum standards, at least updated, accurate information as it relates to flooring included in their projects. Now, pretty exciting, about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually took this hard copy and we put it online. So now the world can see it if they so choose. The URL or the website address for the manual is right there, floorcoveringreferencemanual.com. If you're a BC Floor Covering Association member, you get access to that manual included in your membership, and you can actually access the manual through the Floor Covering Association's website. What's in the manual? Flooring categories include resilient, which is rubber, vinyl, linoleum, LVT, LVP, sheet and tile goods, also carpet, both rolled or broadloom goods and tile, hardwood, site finished, pre-finished, engineered, solid, you name it, and laminate, cork, and bamboo. But what interests me more than just the different product categories is the process standards that differentiates the manual, makes it really useful in a different kind of way. What I mean by that, again, is architectural specification guides. Architects can pick those guides up, drop them in their documents, and at least establish recognized up-to-date instructions to drive the right conditions on site. I mean also testing requirements. This is what makes the difference between floor failure and floor success. Are we testing properly? Are we gaining indoor environmental conditions that are conducive to the manufacturer's installation guidelines? Substrate preparation, hugely contentious, very ambiguous. What is substrate prep? How do you quantify it? Where does it start and stop for the floor covering installer? We'll look at that as we go through this presentation. Trade qualifications. Our trade as a floor covering installation industry is recognized as Red Seal. There's a Red Seal certificate that you can gain as an installer. So that puts you up there with, you know, finished carpenters, crane drivers, chefs. They all can get Red Seal tickets. So can floor covering installers. That's all spelled out in the manual. And trade scope of work is very important. Work included as a standard for the floor covering installer, and work excluded, which would fall under the umbrella of the general contractor or the building owner to carry out that work. There's very clear guidelines, and we'll look at some of them as we go through the presentation. So who is responsible for what? One of the differences with the manual versus manufacturer's installation guidelines, even though they say pretty much the same thing, manufacturer's installation guidelines will not tell the trades on site who is supposed to do what. So it doesn't direct the flooring installer to do this or that, or the general contractor to do this or that, but the manual does. And I'll explain as we go through this. The general contractor, for example, is supposed to remove contaminants from the surface. Contaminants contain all sorts of nasty stuff like asbestos. This is not in the scope of work for the floor covering installer. Moisture testing, who is supposed to take it? What does it mean? Surface preparation, we'll look at in detail. Leveling work, indoor conditions such as relative humidity and temperature, hugely important. And floor protection. For example, once the installer finishes installing that beautiful wood floor or that LVT floor, it is not his or her job to cover it and protect it. Once you're done, you broom sweep it, all the sawdust off, you leave, you're not coming back. So it's the general contractor's job to then cover it and maintain that covering, that protection, until substantial completion or occupancy when the owners move in. Whoa, too much information. Sorry, not expecting you to read all this, but I do want to just point out that this is a section that deals with substrate preparation, which is a very contentious issue in the manual. If you just read this sentence, which I bolded, once we get this specified and included into the documents, it becomes contractually binding to follow through on this language. This language is not out to just protect the floor guy. It's there to protect what is logical. It makes sense, all this stuff. And we know it does because it does work. We've had contracts with some significant dollar figures attached to them change. Maybe there's a big dispute on site, for example. The dispute has been solved when reading this unbiased third-party language because it's logical. So the general contractor shall provide a substrate surface acceptable for the installation of specified flooring materials. Top sentence, for example, filling and leveling of substrate surfaces, including control and construction joints, for example. Not our job as floor covers to fix that. So we won't read through the whole thing, but I think you get the idea. It's very specific about what is included in substrate preparation. Valuable stuff. For the flooring contractor, what are we responsible for? We deal with something that has been for years called min prep or minimal preparation. we arrive on site to a surface that's supposed to be provided ready for flooring. We tidy it up a little bit by filling small chips, dents, removal of minor protrusions, vacuuming of an otherwise acceptable surface. That is key. All the rest is the general contractor's job. Point number 2 here, for example, general contractor owner shall include for the additional substrate preparation work, all additional substrate prep work, shot blasting, grinding, leveling, skim coating, crack filling. This helps to separate responsibility for the flooring contractor and the general contractor and stop a lot of fights during late stage construction. Another big responsibility for us as floor coverers, do not proceed with installation when conditions are known to be not right. Start of work implies acceptance of service and conditions. You go to a restaurant, you eat the meal, you know, it's you don't pay in that scenario. You you can't just eat it and not pay. It's important to stop the process, give the manufacturer a chance to come to site and speak to the product before you just install it and then expect someone to cover you if there's a problem. So flooring is a skill and a science. Don't underestimate what you do as a flooring professional. It's complicated, and you're in at the last stage when everyone's focused on deadlines. You have to accommodate relative humidity, temperature, moisture vapor, alkalinity. It just goes on and on. Laser floor flattening. Complicated, to say the least. And you're operating this science in a busy, organized chaos type work site. And these work sites get faster and faster. That's how we make more money, is by building quicker. So moisture issues. This is laminate flooring where vapor barrier in question maybe wasn't doing the job it was supposed to, wasn't overlapped enough, who knows. But moisture is wicking up through the ground, through the concrete slab. This is slab on grade, and finding the surface of the product. Hardwood flooring. This is solid 2 1/4 by 3/4, site finished, nailed to 3/4 inch plywood. The plywood is hilted to slab on grade. In West Vancouver, this is up on a side hill, and still the groundwater worked its way through a broken or long dissolved vapor barrier and found the driest thing in the home, which is likely to be the hardwood. Kiln dry to an unnaturally dry state. It's just looking for moisture, and moisture will find it if it's anywhere near. So your new mantra as a result of watching this presentation is, if you're a sales estimator or you're someone that has to talk to the builder or homeowner about what you're going to do with their substrate before you bring that floor covering in, is old or new subfloors are wet until you prove them to be dry. Same goes for resilient sheet flooring. This is in a school, stuck down to concrete on grade. Just to show you a cross section of what's going on here. So the ground is here, groundwater. You've got a vapor barrier that should go underneath every slab, 4 or 5 inches of concrete poured on top, but this vapor barrier is not good enough, or is broken or compromised. And so the water literally, in its vapor or gas form, pours through any of the gaps and then starts to wick up through the concrete. Vapor retarders count. This should be a class 1 perm rating. Also, low permeability of that plastic sheet counts. If you are installing hardwood floors, floating, remember, hardwood floors are super dry and they just look to attract moisture. That sheet that you put underneath it must be a class 1 perm rating. If you have any questions about that, we don't have time to get into it now, but you can ask us later on and we can fill you in. Underneath the crawl space, we've got a 5 inch by 3/4 inch hickory pre-finished solid wood floor here. When I went into the crawl space with my little detector here and punched a hole in the plywood underneath that hickory, I got a reading of 13.6. What we want to see in plywood is 12% at the bottom, in the middle, and at the top. And then this hickory at around 8%, 8 or 9% moisture content won't move too much. But you can see what's happened. Just 1.6 percentage points on that dial has caused a problem and an unhappy homeowner. Qualitative concrete moisture testing standards. There's 2 types of tests in the world of testing, qualitative and quantitative. First one, non-destructive electronic moisture meters are qualitative. Plastic sheet method, there's a picture of a plastic sheet. It's really only telling you that yes, there's moisture down there. It doesn't quantify how much. In order to do that, we have to move to the second stage, which is quantitative moisture testing, where you're now getting into ASTM standards of how to execute tests such as a calcium chloride test, or there is a picture of a calcium chloride test, a 1 square foot dome kit, and then the relative humidity in situ probe test. There's a cross section of that test where you actually send a probe deep down 40% into the depth of the concrete, and you're actually finding where the moisture is hanging out, which is usually in the lower half of the slab. Calcium chloride tests will check, for the most part, just the top 3/8 or ½ inch of concrete. So they're not even that accurate. We need these tests in many cases in combination, working together. Indoor environmental conditions. Let's keep plowing here. This is not a pretty site. This is an example of checking. This board is actually what we call dry cupped. Above the space of the hardwood floor, it's become super dry. There's a fireplace very close by here, and it's just dried the air more than the actual material has in terms of moisture content. And so it just forces it to curl, forces it to split. This, whenever you're dealing with these indoor conditions, temperature is critical. And so when I'm measuring this temperature, we're getting 93.5% Fahrenheit. That's around 34 degrees Celsius. And so everywhere I looked, every room where this was radiant heat, we had delamination. The 2 or 3 boards out of every room had popped right off the backing. So ask yourself a question. Do you have a job site checklist? Manufacturers should distribute job site checklists to dealers, help them understand that this is a critical process in determining whether you're acclimating product properly. The BC Floor Covering Association will give you a job site checklist, a sort of template, one that you can work with and tweak to your own needs. Just call our office and we'll give you that if you're a member. So 3 temperatures are important: air temperature, surface temperature, as we just discussed, and product temperature. If you get them all within sort of 10 degrees Celsius of each other, between 60 and 27 degrees, every manufacturer is a little different, or 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, then nothing is going to move too much. You're going to save yourself a lot of claims. Moisture, as we discussed, plywood should be in the 12%, no more than 12% at all depths. Concrete, thoroughly dry. Don't have time to get into what thoroughly dry means, apart from the fact that it is not what the general contractor thinks of as dry, that's for sure. But again, questions around that, call us, we'll fill you in later. Relative humidity should be in that 20% range. Some manufacturers have a wider bandwidth for acceptable relative humidity. Some say 40 to 60%, some say 35 to 55, but it's when you get wide swings outside of the 20% range that you get stress on the flooring. Always per manufacturer's installation and warranty instructions. That's number one, it's their warranty. And before you acclimate and deliver product to site, confirm service conditions. What we mean by service is occupancy. What would you like to move into for relative humidity and heat into your new home? Only acclimate flooring into correct conditions. I don't know how many times I've heard, yeah, don't worry, we acclimated the product, we sent it to site 3 months ago, and it's like, well, what were the site conditions? Huh? Well, does it matter? Yes, absolutely it matters. Photograph your tests. Tools like this laser thermometer, $50. Hygrometer, $50. Simple. Photograph it. Email yourself the results. Cover your you-know-what, because an inspector will go to site on any of the problems that we've seen in this slideshow. First thing they do is they phone the dealer and say, can you please provide the checklist and all the metrics from the site at the time of acclimation, so we can confirm that you didn't make a mistake when you were doing your job. Once you do that and you leave the site, a homeowner is responsible to continue maintaining those conditions. How can you as a floor installer be responsible? It defaults to the building owner, but you do have to be able to prove it. And hearsay, or you saying I did that, is not enough. You've got to be able to show it with photographs and evidence. Now, finally, you can deliver the materials. Wi-Fi data technology is exciting stuff. It's been around a while now. We've got a builder that we're working with right now in a very cold part of the country. He's excited because we put him in touch with this technology, which means he, on his site, and this is a large site, it's over 50,000 feet, has a data logger in every area of the building. And so just to unpack this data here, you got it's March the 16th, that's about 2 weeks ago, at 12:30 in the afternoon, he's got a temperature of 19.1 and a relative humidity of 33%. This is being sent to him every hour. And so he feels empowered and excited to manage his site conditions. Normally, what would happen if you had this on site, you'd get down to sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 6, and you'd see suddenly the temperatures would just drop. Why? Because everybody's gone home and everyone's shut the heat off, turned the fans off. And by the time you get to 3 o'clock in the morning, down here at the bottom, you've got pretty much outside temperatures have now invaded the indoor space. Disaster if flooring is on site. So there's a graphic to explain all that data, all those data points, which makes it very, very manageable. And this guy, it's funny, this general contractor, he is excited. He buys his coffee first thing in the morning, and then he comes in, guess what? He's turning on his data logger to see where his site's at. He will manage it. That job will go absolutely fine. Okay, a little case study here. Homeowner sent me this. Not sure if you can you hear the floor singing? Yes. Brand new home in the Lower Mainland here. 2,000 square feet, 9/16 by 7.5 inch engineered hardwood floor, good quality product, glued and nailed into place, but sounding like, I don't know what, my back on a Monday morning. What's the problem? Well, let's have this is a plan view of this home, and I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but the homeowner was walking around the kitchen island when we just saw that video. Problem is, this was a home that was built January, installed the floor sort of February, March, and then the builder left the place unoccupied for 6 months, put it on the market. Eventually it was bought in September. So it's been empty for 6 months. This is a problem because it's become dry. What happens when people move in? They bought the home in September, they moved in and the floor started squeaking in October because with people comes breathing, showers, boiled kettles, cooking, and the floor grew, it expanded. And if you look here at the bathroom and the mudroom, this was the expansion gap left in place, tight to the shooter strip. The floor has absolutely nowhere to go as it grows. This is what we would like to see, but homeowners don't want that, but they also don't want squeaks. So you have to have that difficult conversation and say no, which is what we were talking about at the beginning. Not easy to say that unless you know the ramifications of not doing it right. Further to that, a 55-foot run from top to bottom. 55 feet means 88 planks. Now, if each plank expands 1 millimeter, you've got 88 millimeters of expansion with nowhere for the floor to go. No wonder it's squeaking. Subfloor flatness, very quickly, there are 2 issues we want to concern ourselves with: tilt or levelness, and then flatness is bumpiness, undulation. Levelness really isn't our concern. We can lay a perfectly good wood floor on a surface like that and still get a warranty, but we cannot do it on this surface. Same with LVT. What happens if you lay LVT over this? You get, oh, what's going on? You get this, failure, no payment, no commission. This is bamboo flooring on a wonky undulating surface. Very unhappy homeowner. Excessive high and low spots will void the factory warranty. So we need to pour leveling compound or hydraulic cement underlayment, or plano as it's called, or patch. Not our trade scope of work as a given, but can be taken on as a billable extra. or high spots in concrete. This is the 12th floor of a mid-rise concrete building in Vancouver. Wherever you see these sort of cosmetic cracks, it's indicating a high spot. Someone's going to need to get in there with a grinder to knock those down. When an inspector goes to site, he takes a 6-foot straight edge and places it on the floor, slides it back and forth, and identifies high spots. So what we have here is a fulcrum point or a high spot right here, 3 feet over. We get down on our hands and knees and we take a photograph of this gap. And there is the gap, 1/4 of an inch over 3 feet. Fail. We need 1/8 over 6 feet, or industry standards state 3/16 over 10, which correlates to 1/8 over 6. That, I think, brings us to 25 minutes. So we're going to quickly talk about some resources and then got some questions. Please fire away.
Okay,
Any
thank you very
questions I
much,
can't
Chris.
answer
That
for
was
you,
very
we'll
informative.
get to you later.